Yo YouTube, hello and welcome to episode 5 of Draw for 20. I am your host, Eyes of the Fox, and today I drew Wolverine. Tried to. You can see when we get to his legs, I had a rough go with that. I had reference for the character, but I wasn't using a pose or anything for reference, so most of the anatomy is kind of from memory, and when we get to the legs you can kind of see that. It's been a while since I've drawn, like I stated in a previous turtle episode, and so I'm really just trying to get back into it and get better and use this as a tool to improve. And the more I do it, the more I learn about the things that I do need to focus on. The drawing looks like it's going really fast because this one actually took me almost 2 hours to do, just because I wasn't really sure like how I wanted to do his legs, because I want to have other characters in there and I want to show like the whole body. I feel a lot of artists kind of like cheat by only drawing like the top half of the character before they run out of paper, or they'll start the character's head and then, you know, they won't have enough space to finish the legs, so they just kind of forget about the legs at least when they're kind of like starting out. And so I was really trying to do the pose. You see here I give him the one claw as like the middle finger, kind of, he's kind of known for that. But a little brief history about me and the X-Men. The X-Men cartoon came out in 1992. I believe they had like a recent like comic miniseries, or it could still be going on, I'm not sure. There was X-Men 92 that was kind of based in that universe. But 1992, I was in 4th grade, and yeah, I just remember like Fox Kids in the morning, like at like 6 in the morning, they would have like Fox's Peter Pan and the Pirates, and then I'd watch the heck out of that show. That show was dope. And then there'd be a bunch of garbage in between that and the 11 o'clock spot. And the 11 o'clock spot hit, you got Spider-Man, and then at 11:30 you got X-Men, and then at noon you got Soul Train. If anybody remembers that from watching Fox on Saturday mornings. I kind of miss those days. But yeah, 4th grader, and I was drawing X-Men after the Turtles because that's what was big. I remember like Wizard magazine way back in like when I was in 5th grade did a they used to have a segment that was like if they cast comic book movies, like who they would get to play the characters. And I remember them having Patrick Stewart as Professor X, and what do you know, like almost 15 years later that actually happened. You can see here I am taking advantage of a lot of my digital tools. I'm using my lasso, I'm moving stuff around, I'm transforming it, I'm trying to get the legs right. Man, those legs look okay. Like, what was I thinking? Man, see, recording it, I'm not sure what happened there. I think my mic may have dropped out, but like when you're sitting there live and you're drawing it and you're just staring at the same thing over and over, parts of it start to look kind of weird. And so I wasn't quite sure if it looked okay or if it looked alright, but I could see now it was totally fine. And the next like 30 minutes of me trying to figure this out was completely unnecessary. And I almost thought about stopping the recording and like not trying it again, but doing like an edit where because I like his top half. The top half of Wolverine is great. It's awesome. Like, it looks cool. It's very Wolverine. He's kind of like, come here, come get it. But I just wasn't happy with his legs. Like, his legs just looked really weird to me. And I wanted to leave that in the video, or I decided to leave it in the video because I feel it's important for other artists, like younger art, not necessarily younger artists, but like newer artists that maybe aren't not self-deprecating, but aren't as big a fan of their own work, because they feel like it's garbage. Well, guess what? Like, I thought this was garbage the whole time I was doing it, and there may be other people out there that like can't draw or like don't have that skill or don't have that ability, that don't see that, right? And I feel like I wanted you guys to kind of see what that process was and kind of like watch me learn and figure it out and get a little peek at like the tools and techniques I used to do that. If it was on paper, I'd be like erasing the whole time, or I would just trash that piece of paper, throw it away, and start it all over again. And you know, I didn't want to cop out and do that. I wanted to actually show you all the road bumps in the road so you would know to avoid those road bumps or learn from my mistakes. I think I stated in a previous video that I'm not trying to teach you and I'm not asking for advice, but I'm using it as a tool to like get better at my own work. And there's thousands of artists out there that are way better than anything I could do, and I'm okay with that because it gives you something to like strive toward, right? Like the better someone else is at something, the more it kind of makes you not necessarily wonder why you're not that good, but it kind of like, for me, it drives me to like get better at it, so I can be like, no, I am as qualified as those other artists. And back in the 90s, man, Jim Lee was the man for X-Men. I remember reading a lot of the X-Men comics when I was a kid, and it was always Jim Lee basically got me into X-Men. When I would see those covers, it was just like, wow. I was kind of blown away. Looking back at it now, there's a lot of unnecessary lines, and you can see where his art's actually grown too. Like if you look at his old X-Men art compared to like some of the stuff he does today, I know on his own YouTube channel he'll post like, you know, 3-hour drawings of him drawing Batman or something of the like for DC, because that's where he's at now. But the thing I remember like most about Wolverine was just how cool he looked. He was probably the coolest looking X-Men, and one of my first experience was the animated show, as I stated earlier. And he just had that attitude. You really felt for him, because not only was he a mutant, but I think he had it the worst of like all the mutants, right? Like he was experimented on. They put this like metal inside his body that his healing factor is like constantly fighting against, and his whole existence is just a struggle to be alive. And I really thought that the Logan movie did a really good job of like portraying that. It's probably one of the best Wolverine movies we've ever gotten, although I do like the one where he goes to Japan. That was pretty cool. You saw off to the side over there, I tried to draw small because like aim small, miss small, and a lot of times if you draw smaller, you can actually work out the proportions a little bit better. So I kind of try to do that to figure out, okay, like where am I messing up? Like how should I do this, right? And so here I'm just like trying to figure out still the legs, you know. And I think by the end of it turned out okay. I really do spend a lot of time on those legs. It's so crazy. Wow. But yeah, Wolverine just looked cool. He had that attitude. I remember there was one cover that had him like popping his claws through the skull of Sabretooth, and that was like a whole series of like story where he was like hunting Sabretooth, and it was like, I forget where exactly it was, can't remember, it was like Siberia, but it was somewhere in the snow, and he was just hunting him down, and that was a really cool fight in the comics. And see, that actually looks fine too. So I'm not sure really what I was going for with the legs. I probably should have worked out the whole body first before I started to try to like actually make it look like him. And it's been a while since I've done like American style art, or just like American characters. Anime is like super big right now. I think a lot of Americans forget that there's some really cool like American properties out there. Uh, a lot of the X-Men cartoons are bangers. Wolverine and the X-Men was super cool. If you've ever checked that out. I still like the original 92 series. That was my first experience with a lot of those stories. The Age of Apocalypse. You have Mr. Sinister in there. You had the Savage Lands. You got the Phoenix Saga. Are you kidding me? Like, the third X-Men movie that came out was garbage compared to what the cartoon did with the Phoenix Saga. The Phoenix Saga was so sick. I remember there was another time where he actually, like, I think Magneto had taken the adamantium out of his body and he became like feral, and people used to draw him with like or the artists in the comics used to draw him with this crazy wild hair, and he was like I remember there would be like times when there would be people at the X-Men mansion, like Storm would be like walking around like asking people, it's like, have you seen Wolverine? And they're like, yeah, he's hanging out in the woods behind the mansion, just like eating bugs and stuff, you know. And so it was just it was just fascinating. I think that Marvel Comics spent the most time developing his character over all the other characters. I always loved his rivalry with Scott Summers. I hated that dude. Like, I hated Cyclops so bad. And so every time Wolverine would quip at him or pop off at him, it was always funny. So I finally got to a point where I was happy with his legs, and so for this one I decided to actually use my G pen, and I made it a little bit thinner so I could get some like finer line quality, so it wouldn't be as sketchy as the turtles. I like the way the turtles turned out, but having grown up on the animation, I really wanted those like thin black lines, and when we get to the colors pop. And so this is the fun part, right? Like, this is the easy part, YouTube. Like, doing the black line, it's so easy because I've already got all the red figured out. I don't have to waste any more time on that. And you saw it took me over half the video to get to that point. And I remember just like in high school, I never used to do that, right? In high school, middle school, elementary school, I would never sketch out my drawings first. I would just start with the head and then go down from there and just do it exactly like it'd be like the pencils would be what the final looked like. And I want to kind of get back to that, but like I said, I haven't been drawing as much lately until this series started, and so it's kind of hard for me to just jump right back in and be like, okay, I know exactly what it's going to look like, here we go. But I'm kind of happy with the way it started to turn out. They always used to, the artists used to draw them with all the hair all the time. I remember Frank Miller had this one, there was one cover where he was in the brown suit and he had all like the threads and strings and stuff hanging off. It was all torn up, but all you saw was like all his arm hair. He was like the hairiest dude. For those in the community, he'd probably be the bear. You know, if you're into that. But yeah, man, I always thought the X-Men were cool. I used to have a board game that had like all these little figures. They were like little figurines. They were probably like an inch and a half tall that were sculpted, that were really, they came with like 25 different X-Men. It had like Archangel and Wolverine and Beast. I remember I didn't have anybody to play the board game with, so I would just take those figures and I would just have my own little like X-Men battle like with the figures. And you know, nowadays I wish, yeah, I kind of wish I could play that. And I know I have a buddy that'd be like, oh, let's hop on tabletop and play. But there's something about board games, man. It's like, if I'm not there in person playing it, my monkey brain just kind of like shuts off after a while. And I find it really difficult to like stay focused on the actual game. let's see if I can come up with some. Oh yes, there was one time I had the Weapon X action figure, and as much as I hated Cyclops, I'm about to drop something that you're gonna be like, what? That's contradictory to what you said earlier. I had a Weapon X action figure, and I believe I traded it for a kid that had a Cyclops action figure. And the reason I did it is because, one, I didn't like that the Weapon X figure was like half naked. Like, it was cool that it was Weapon X and he had like the little helmet and you could see his face. He wasn't like wearing the mask. You'd take the helmet off and he had the claws and all the tubes and stuff. But he was just in his underwear. And I was like, that's kind of lame. But the Cyclops figure this kid had in 4th grade lit up, and like, it was so cool. And so I traded him for it. My mom got so pissed off, dude. She was like, I paid good money for that, and blah, 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 blah. And in my mind, I'm like, well, his mom paid money for his figure, and those figures are the same price, so it's like equal trade. I'm happy. My friend is happy. Why are you so mad? I was like, I didn't get it. My stepdad was like, it's his thing. Just, it's fine. You know, but she was like livid, dude. I remember being on a playground in like 5th grade. It was me and this a couple other kids. Marcus Jacobs, if he's out there, man, if you ever watch this video, bro, I still have mad love for you. You take really cool photos of figures now. When I was on Facebook, I used to see him, and I thought it was really cool. But him and another kid, I think his name is Alfredo, we used to like hang out on like, not really like a jungle gym, it was like a dome of metal pipes. It was like the least safe thing you could have kids play on in 5th grade. And we'd just hang out on the top, and we would quiz each other on comic books. And, you know, X-Men was a big part of that, because they were popping off at the time. I'm not really sure what happened to Marvel, because in '92, that was 4 years before they applied for bankruptcy. And they had the cartoons, they had the comics, they had board game, like they had video game. Like, what were they spending their money on? Like, why'd they have to file for bankruptcy? And because of that, they ended up having to sell a lot of their film rights and TV rights to other companies. And I never understood like what exactly happened. But here you can see we move into the colors. I do use the flats. I actually took these colors directly from Jim Lee image. So these are like official Marvel comic colors from, or as close as you can get to it, I guess. The time lapse is almost done, so you can see how much time we spent on the sketch versus the actual inking and the coloring of the character. You know, I'm actually really happy with the way it turned out. I wasn't at first, just because it did take so long with the legs, but you know, you pop in the yellow. Don't forget, I do go back in and color his nose, so don't worry about that. I just let the paper be the skin tone. Here I come in with the white pencil because I don't want the claws to be too overbearing. And I think we get some smoke in here for his cigar, because he's always got that cigar going. Don't smoke, kids. It's bad for you. And then something I liked from the turtle episodes was that high white. So I think in a couple seconds you'll see me go through and bam, here we go. Start on the right arm and just pop in those little white highlights. And that just really sets it off. Like, I learned that from Ross Draws. Just those little bam, those little white highlights. Haven't gotten to the color dodge yet, but the white highlights really pop it off, in my opinion. So yeah, that's gonna be Wolverine, everybody. This has been episode 5 of Draw for 20. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Be easy to each other, and don't take life too serious. Bye, everybody.